Hello and welcome to KnightHunter Books. We're here today to do a quick update on our 2018 resolutions. Spoiler, Bex did rather better than I did. And give you an idea of what our aims are this year.
So the first kind of basic resolution that I had was my Goodreads goal, and for some reason I care about that little challenge sticker telling me how far I am to my goal.
Despite the fact you have a spreadsheet which tracks in more detail what you read.
And different things.
So how many books did your spreadsheet say you read in 2018?
Like 60 something? My Goodreads goal, however, was 40. I upped this to 45 midway through the year because Goodreads kept telling me I was ahead, and I ended up with 46, so close. Obviously that's ended up on Goodreads because on my spreadsheet then I count short stories as well. So my Goodreads is generally anything novella length or longer. This year, in 2019, then I'm aiming for 50. Because I accidentally told a load of people at work that I was aiming for 50 because it seemed like a more sensible number than 45. So 50 it is.
And we're in the third week of January, and so you should have read 2.5 books by now.
Yeah. One. We'll get there though, we'll get there. My next goal was to reread one book. I actually reread three, sort of. I reread 3 graphic novels, which I'm sort of seeing as a win. But
except you didn't reread it just because you enjoyed it the first time. You reread it so that you could read the next one and remember.
That's what I'm doing anyway. But yes, so now my 2019 goal is reread a novel, because I think I'm going to see that as more of a blocker. And generally I just want to reread more, but it's a lot more of a time commitment.
Well, Goodreads counted.
Yes, there were a lot of people in the comments last year who told me that Goodreads does count those rereads, so thank you very much. So, which might partly explain why my goal is more ambitious now. My third one is a little more numbery, and that was to read more books by authors that I have already read books by before the year started. So, in 2017, of the unique authors that I read, 70% were new to me that year. I wanted to reduce this, probably closer to 50. I actually managed about 60%, so I'm seeing that as a success. I think in particular I've read a lot of the Hugo short stories and things like that, which involved a lot of new to me authors, so I think without that, actually the novel proportion would be more kind of parity split. And to be honest, this was more because I'd noticed a behaviour in myself. There isn't really an inherently better end of that axis. It's just whatever works for you, and I think I found I wasn't letting myself go back to authors that I'd already knew I loved. So I'm not really going to add this as an explicit 2019 resolution. I think I'm better now.
Good!
Better living through data. So in 2018 I also wanted to read more short stories. I didn't really define this very well, because mostly what I was talking about is I wanted to keep up with all the different websites and things like that, which I didn't really do, but I did read all the Hugo nominated short works. However, it was very difficult to find a metric that said that I won this one, because 2017 I actually read quite a lot of short stories according to the way I track them, and quite a lot of pages of short stories. However, I'm putting that down to a couple of basically anthologies that I read that had loads of flash fiction in, and some kind of almost graphic works that actually were more short story than graphic. So I feel like I did better, but there's not really any numbers to point at it. I definitely did better at going out and reading individual short stories that weren't part of a collection. Unless you count nominees for an award as a collection.
Interesting. I probably read on the order of 400 short stories last year.
What?
365 Tomorrows. I read a flash fic every day.
Well, yes. This is where book tracking just falls apart entirely.
So I don't really have any quantifiable results with regard to my resolutions last year, because I don't track anything. Going back through previous videos is somewhat time consuming. However, one thing I have said about this year is given that we have just booked to attend Worldcon, let us know if we're going to see you there, I would quite like to make sure that I've read absolutely everything before the voting deadline.
I've got a tricky question for you. Best series?
Oh, bugger. Yes, best series is going to be interesting.
Within reason. Certainly, you want to do all the way up to novels. I think my aim is to do same as last year and read everything shorter than novels, but probably try and read the graphics as well, because that seems doable, especially if I look at which ones were nominated last year, because it's likely to be a continuation of some of those. Novels, I'm just never up to date enough, and a lot of them are third in series and stuff, so that could be an entire year's worth of reading. But I think I did get a lot out of reading the short fiction nominees, and it was nice doing those videos, so we'll try and do something similar this year. Another of my resolutions was to read more books associated with fandom. I didn't do this at all. I think this was like a passing fancy, because I'd just seen the Star Wars film. But I think...
And all the Star Wars books are still on our TBR, in fact.
So we will read the Star Wars book. We only have one. But I think that just comes into letting myself read whatever I want to read without this kind of idea of, well, that's not a real book. Which I think I'm getting better at anyway. So
you are allowed to read for fun. It doesn't have to be improving.
Yes.
I mean, I should probably read less fun. But...
A new one for 2019, though, is that I'd like to read a fair bit of non-fiction. I actually started reading non-fiction last year, despite it not being one of my resolutions.
What, you mean self-guided reading?
So I read 6 non-fiction books last year. I hadn't really read any non-fiction before that, maybe the odd book. And I found it really rewarding. I think a lot of that was trying to catch up on some of the older books on my TBR. I'm going to give myself an easy one and say I want to read the same or more in 2019. So just keep that up, really. That was such a step up from the years before. And I've bought quite a few of non-fiction books, so it would be a shame to not actually be reading them.
My next one was around reading more graphic works and other media. And this was a somewhat silly resolution, given that I don't track anything. That said, I feel reasonably up to speed with what's going on in comics. I'm currently having to fight the urge to start picking up weeklies, given that Saladin Ahmed and Shona Maguire are both now writing for Marvel. That's getting harder to resist.
And you've learned from this experience by now making smarter goals.
Yes, definitely. 14 years of objectives, so you'd think I'd be better at it by now. I have quite a lot of books on the TBR, and I do think sometimes that books get older and the lustre of excitement falls away, leaving behind a pale, shriveled thing. And I'm inclined to not read books that I'm not hugely excited about. Increasingly, I'm thinking the way that I'm actually going to get through this is read the first 50 pages of some of the older ones and go, actually, Past John was an idiot. Or occasionally, Past John had very different tastes to me, and DNF it. This should hopefully feed into our next joint resolution.
So in 2019 then you want to DNF something. We figure even without tracking your reading you might remember that, because I don't think I know you've ever DNF'd something.
No.
So it might be a momentous occasion worth noting.
There's 40% of a book on the TBR because I refuse to DNF it.
Refuse no longer.
Next one is to film more reviews. They tend to take a bit more thinking about, and honestly I thought we'd filmed more, and then I was looking back through our back catalogue and going, oh, that's like whole 1s and 2s and 3s. I'd particularly like to focus on underhyped books. So last year it feels like In Other Lands and Nomon fell into that category, and Infamocracy the year before. and it's fun to highlight books to people that they wouldn't otherwise have found.
So 3.
Yeah.
3 in 2019.
Again, making my resolutions smart.
Not necessarily just for John, it'll depend on who's read the right books to review. And then finally, this is our kind of joint resolution, both for last year and this year. So last year, then, we wanted to reduce the TBR, but I think specifically stop getting books just because they were free, which I'm not sure we did amazingly at. I think there were some decisions we made kind of more consciously. So when we went to SFX BookCon at Foyles, then we were quite careful about trying to get the best possible combination of books for our interests.
We've certainly changed our TBR. It used to be a boring 5-foot IKEA bookcase. It's now this thing, which is a bit more exciting, and we bought it with the intention of putting our TBR on it and a load of other stuff, you know, like pretty plants or statues and whatnot. There's no room. It's books.
No,
and a little bit of stationery.
Pretty bookcases don't fit as many books on. So actually, in 2019, our main aim doesn't really come down to a number. It comes down to centimetres. It's how we want that bookcase to not have stuff on top of it, and we've got a few of the kind of pockets that we'd like to empty out. So, you know, reading a really long book or a hardback is actually better for that than reading some of the shorter works.
Yep, especially if you DNF it.
The other thing that I talked about in relation to TBR last year, which I don't think I quite got you to agree with too, was that I wanted to read all of the books that I'd acquired before 2015. At that point, however, I wasn't tracking when I'd acquired books. I think partway through the year I realised that was a bit ambitious. I mean, to be honest, I forgot about it, and then towards the end of the year I went, oh, I should check my resolutions, and then went, oh, there's quite a few of those books. So I think I managed maybe 5 or so of them. But, you know, no tracking. So this year I want to track better, and actually just generally track what books are coming in and out of the house, but that requires a bit of data entry and racking of memories and going through haul videos. I think though, by having the same resolution, I've got a chance this year. So I've counted, and there are 12 books left that I acquired before 2015, and all of those I'd like to have read by the end of the year. And hold me to this, I'm going to get rid of them if I don't.
Yeah, I'm not making that resolution.
I don't even know which ones you got. I think there's a photo you've got of what your TBR looked like in like 2014, so I might be able to find some data.
No. Yeah, but you can't throw books away.
Are you trying to DNF more?
Yes, but you... Anyway. Yeah. Nobody wants to watch a domestic.
Okay, so those are our reading resolutions for 2019. Sorry this has gone up so late, I hope you're not sick of watching these videos by now. Let us know what your reading resolutions will be for 2019, or how you got on with them in 2018, or I hate resolutions, whatever's applicable for you. Thank you for watching, we'll see you again soon.